The cold here is like the cold in old tales. I've been sitting on this block of ice for hours, my feet long numb. There's a hole in front of me, a black pit that hasn't yielded a single fish in 3 days. My mother lies waiting in our crumbling cabin, her lungs too weak for this frost. If I bring nothing home today, she won't last the night. Hunger clouds my thoughts. I scraped the bottom of every grain sack in the house, only dust remained. I'm out here because I don't know what else to do. I'd rather let the ice take me than sit watching her fade. Nothing here feels alive, nothing moves. I seized the axe and struck the edge of the hole, hoping to wake something. Instead of a fish, I woke something else. The water stirred. A dark shape passed beneath my feet, heavy, making the ice tremble. The surface cracked with a sharp snap. I threw myself backward as water splashed my face, burning like fire. From the depths rose a creature that should not exist. A blue woman, scaled, clinging to the frozen rim with clawed hands. She was no animal. She stared at me as though I were prey, her eyes fixed, piercing straight into my soul. I couldn't look away. Then she extended one hand and revealed a golden fish that glowed with fierce light, a light that warmed you just by seeing it. That fish was my mother's life. Fear shrank back, and I managed to stammer, "Please give me the fish. I need to bring something home." I hadn't expected her to speak. I only hoped she'd toss it, so I could run. But she spoke. "I need something too. I need your warmth." She didn't move, waiting for me to take the first step. She pointed to my chest, then to my clothes. I understood. I removed my wool tunic and stood bare-chested against the biting wind. Her blue hands reached out and pressed directly against my skin. It wasn't a touch. She dug her claws in just enough to pin me. A blade of cold struck through me, emptying my lungs, stealing my breath. She was draining my life to warm herself. The pain nearly made me black out, but I held on. I accepted it, because that glowing fish was the only thing that would keep us all from the grave today. She withdrew her claws, and I collapsed to my knees in the snow. The cold no longer came from outside. It had settled inside me, a stone in my chest. I took the golden fish from the ice. Its skin burned my numb fingers. I pulled on my tunic with clumsy hands and ran toward the shore without looking back, thinking only of reaching the cabin before my body failed. I burst inside and slammed the door. My mother lay unchanged, breathing that broken whistle that clawed at my nerves. I went straight to the embers. I didn't clean the fish. I threw it whole into the hot pan. Fat hissed, and the smell of roasting meat filled the room. My stomach twisted with hunger, but I carried the pan to the bed and shook her shoulder. Her eyes opened. I fed her the first piece with my own fingers. She had no strength to lift her head. She swallowed without chewing. At the second bite, color returned to her cheeks. She sat up with strength she hadn't possessed in weeks and snatched the pan from me, devouring the rest. I stood watching, frightened by how swiftly the sickness fled. She fell back exhausted, sleeping deeper than she had in years. I sat by the fire, trying to warm myself. I held my hands almost in the flames. I saw the wood burn and my skin redden, but felt nothing. Heat would not enter me. I rubbed my arms, looked around, and simply watched her sleep. At dawn she rose, seemingly cured, moving through the cabin as if she'd never been ill. But at noon, while sweeping, she coughed once. She doubled over the broom. When I reached her, the fever had returned. She looked at me with terror in her eyes. The medicine was gone. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the staff and headed back to the ice. The same hole. Overnight, the water had frozen again. I broke the new layer with the staff until black water showed once more. I didn't have to wait long. The ice shattered, and she rose, elbows on the rim, as though she'd been expecting me. This time she held no fish. I shouted that I needed another, that the fever was back. She regarded me without expression. "Your warmth is no longer useful to me," she said, voice deep. "If you want another fish, give me your first memory." She held out an open palm toward my face. I didn't hesitate. I closed my eyes and summoned the image of my mother singing to me in the kitchen when I was small. The moment it was clear, pain lanced through the base of my skull, a sharp, sudden tug. When I opened my eyes, she had sunk back into the dark. A fish flapped on the ice at my feet. I seized it. I searched my mind for that kitchen memory. Nothing remained, only blank space where it had been seconds before. I tucked the fish inside my coat and started home. I reached the cabin with pounding heart. My mother lay on the floor beside the dead fire. I cooked the fish in silence and fed her. She swallowed the last piece, and the fever vanished instantly. But now a strange restlessness took her. She paced the room, eyes unblinking, then demanded more, thanking me for nothing, only ordering me back to the lake. I returned every day. The medicine burned through her faster each time, and the prices grew steeper. One day the creature demanded I steal firewood from the neighbors. I did it that night, leaving an entire family cold to keep my own warm. Another day, she ordered theft from the village. I stood at the ice edge and refused, shouting that Ivan's dogs guarded the warehouses around the clock, that they'd hang me and leave my mother alone. She stopped drifting peacefully. She seized the rim violently, claws sinking into the ice, rising until her face was inches from mine. The water at my feet began to boil. "Are you afraid of a man?" she hissed, voice no longer soft but raw. "Look at me, Leo. I decide whether your mother sees tomorrow. Ivan can only break your bones. I can leave you utterly alone." She gripped my ankle hard enough to remind me she could drag me under. "You will go to the village," she commanded, "and you want steel scraps. You'll take something he values, something that hurts to lose. Return empty-handed, and don't return at all." She released me and vanished. I ran, not the main road, but behind the houses, crawling through dirty snow where no one looks. I reached Ivan's stone warehouse. His two guards huddled around a fire barrel at the entrance, rubbing their hands. I slipped past on the dark side, silent. I no longer shiver, I am unseen. I entered through a narrow vent, too tight for ordinary men, but I moved differently now. Inside smelled of real food. I ignored the grain and went to a shelf holding amber liquor and cured meat, spoils worth more than my entire life. I hid them under my coat, tasting triumph. I turned to leave the way I came, but froze. Ivan sat in the shadows on a pile of sacks, 3 meters away, iron club across his knees. He watched me without surprise, like a man used to mice. "I knew it was you, Leo," he said, voice echoing off stone. "You move well, but you reek of rotten fish." He rose slowly. I calculated distances, but he was larger and armed. He cornered me against the shelf. He didn't use the club. He grabbed my throat with thick, hot fingers and lifted me, slamming me against the wall. Air fled my lungs. He rifled through my coat like gutting prey, found the bottle and meat, set them carefully aside. Then he punched my ribs. Bone cracked audibly, yet I felt nothing. My body jerked, but I didn't cry out. My breathing stayed even. He stared, confused and disgusted. He tried dragging me out, but when his hand brushed my bare neck, he recoiled as if burned by ice. He saw the inhuman cold beneath my skin. He didn't touch me again. He kicked the back door open and stepped aside. "Get out, corpse." I left and didn't stop until I reached the ice, empty-handed, pride shattered. I threw myself before the hole, waiting for punishment. She emerged, looked not at my hands, but at my caved ribs, and smiled. She cared nothing for meat or liquor. She liked seeing me humiliated. "Hatred suits you," she said, tossing a fish onto the ice without further price. I took it and ran home. Each step shifted the broken bone inside me, a clicking that should have agonized but didn't. I felt like I touched a stranger's body. My mother saw neither torn clothes nor bruised chest, only the pan. She ate with bare hands, burning her fingers. I stood in the dark, feeding my own resentment toward Ivan while watching her become something that only knew how to swallow. She wiped grease from her mouth and slept, snoring wetly. The fish's heat made her sweat and sleep. She kicked away the blanket. I went to cover her and froze. The pale skin of her calves had turned to hard, gleaming scales, dirty blue, identical to the lake woman's. I backed against the wall, finally understanding. I wasn't saving her. I was turning her into the creature. I covered her carefully. Her breathing slowed, deep and hibernating. I spent the night awake, watching those scaled legs beneath the cloth. At dawn, she didn't wake for water. Her eyes stared at the ceiling. Frost filmed her lashes. She no longer spoke or asked for food. She only waited. Her skin grew colder, yet she lived. The fish hadn't just ended hunger. It was taking her humanity. Rage drove me from the cabin, staff in hand, determined for answers. I beat the ice until she rose, wary of my fury. I demanded to know why my mother's skin hardened, why she no longer knew me. The creature tilted her head with inhuman calm. "I am saving her," she said softly. "Your world is too cold for your kind. I'm giving her a body that endures, one that needs neither fire nor bread." Didn't you want eternal life? Eternal life meant ceasing to be human, meant she would take my mother to the black depths forever. I screamed that this wasn't the bargain, that I wanted healing, not monstrosity. Her smile vanished, her face hardened like ancient ice. "You cannot choose now. The change is halfway. Stop the medicine and her body breaks before nightfall. She needs the final transformation to survive. Either she becomes mine or she becomes dust." She offered a larger, brighter fish. I snatched it in disgust and fled. But as I stepped toward shore, my sharpened hearing caught a foreign sound. A boot scraping cautiously behind the gray ridge. Someone had followed me from the village and seen everything. I froze. The sound came from the rocks marking the trailhead. I didn't turn suddenly. Running would make me easy prey. I hid the fish's glow beneath my coat and waited. Ivan emerged from behind a snowdrift, flanked by his two remaining men, cutting off my path home. They moved like hunters circling wounded game. Ivan's eyes bulged, fixed not on me, but on the dark water where the creature's tail had only just vanished. He had seen her. "So that's your secret," he said, advancing slowly across the ice, voice hoarse with cold and greed. "You've been feasting while we boil boot leather, and all along you had a gold mine in this hole." He signaled. The largest man twisted my arm behind my back and forced me to my knees, pinning me. The thin one, frost-bearded, approached the hole with a gaff raised like a spear. Ivan stood beside me, arms folded, waiting for the glow. The thin man knelt at the edge, peering in. Silence fell over the lake. Nothing happened. He relaxed, turning to us with disappointment. "Boss, there's nothing here. Just a filthy hole." He never stood up. A blue hand shot from the water, claws closing around his beard. One brutal yank snapped his neck. He vanished beneath the surface with barely a gurgle. The man holding me screamed and fled backward across the snow. Ivan staggered, pale, clutching his club. The water stilled again, as if nothing had occurred. I didn't wait. I ran. No one pursued. Fear of what lived below outweighed their greed. I reached the cabin to find the door open, heavy boot prints leading away, dragging marks toward the village. I followed straight to Ivan's old salt-curing warehouse. Heat blasted me as I entered. They'd stoked the stove to roaring. In the center, tied to a chair dangerously close to the flames, sat my mother, skin gray, cracking from the dry heat. Ivan stood beside her, one hand on her shoulder, the other stroking a knife. His last man blocked the door. "Told you were clever, Leo," Ivan said with his twisted grin. "Knew you'd come. Let her go. She has nothing to do with this." He shook his head. "I don't want fish anymore. I saw what's in the lake. I want its owner. You are the only one it spares. Bring her to me alive. I'll chain her. Come back empty or tricky, and I shove your old woman into the stove." My mother barely breathed. Fighting would kill her before I reached him. I swallowed rage and thought fast. "She can't walk on land," I lied, voice trembling just enough. "She'll suffocate. To bring her alive, I need water, the barrel on the sled." Ivan nodded to his man. We hitched two gaunt horses to the cargo sled carrying the huge brine barrel. The journey back was silent except for creaking wood and hooves. At the hole, the man forced me to the edge, gaff at my back. I struck the ice. She rose, majestic and terrible. The horses reared at the predator's scent, but the man held them. I stepped into view, blocking the gaff. I met her eyes. Words weren't needed. She saw my fear, the weapon, and understood. Not betrayal, but a plea. "Get in," I whispered, nodding to the barrel. "They have my mother. Take us inside." She flowed out of the water, slithered across the ice like an eel, and climbed into the dark barrel. Water overflowed. I slammed the lid before the man saw too much. "She's in." He grinned, confident, and drove the horses back. We entered the warehouse. He forced the sled to the center. Ivan laughed nervously, eyes shining with greed, stepping away from my mother. "Open it," he ordered, knife ready. "Show me my fortune." I approached the barrel, looked at Ivan, at my mother, then placed my hand on the latch. "You asked for this," I whispered. I released the latch and threw myself flat. The lid didn't open, it exploded. Wood splintered. A blue shadow streaked upward with a blood-chilling shriek. She struck the henchman before he could raise the gaff, claws tearing flesh and cloth. He fell like bloody rags. Ivan froze, knife shaking. She turned on him. Nothing human left, only teeth and rage. He tried for the door. She was faster. She pinned him to the wall, claws piercing through to bone, then flung him aside like a broken toy. Outside, the horses, mad with blood smell, snapped the shafts and bolted into the night. Silence returned, broken only by the stove's crackle. The creature, dark-stained, turned to me. Her eyes softened. From her dripping hand, she gently dropped a red fish into my lap. I crawled to my mother, cut her bonds with Ivan's own knife. She collapsed into my arms, burning with fever, skin hard as bark. "Come back," I whispered. I placed the red fish over her heart. It didn't burn. It glowed like sunrise. Warm, pulsing light soaked through cloth into flesh. She arched, gasping hugely. The blue scales dried, flaked to gray dust, tinkling to the floor. Beneath, her skin returned, pink, soft, human. She opened her eyes, clear, familiar. She touched my face with trembling fingers and, exhausted, fell asleep in my arms. I looked up. The creature stood silhouetted in the open doorway against the snow. No longer fury, only quiet waiting. She knew I wouldn't leave now, that I must care for what ID saved. But she also knew the bargain had changed. "Every night," I promised softly. She smiled, a smile that, for the first time, didn't chill me. Then she slipped into the darkness, heading for the lake. I stayed there holding my mother beside the stove's warmth, knowing that though winter still raged outside, the fear was gone forever. This story took a different path from what you're used to. We truly hope you enjoyed it. We're already deep into crafting new epic tales, but we want to hear from you. If you're waiting for part 2 of any unfinished story, ask in the comments and it will be heard. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and special thanks to our members and super chats.